Imagine vanishing without a trace on a routine bike ride, leaving behind only shattered clues in a family's endless nightmare. My name is Mike. Welcome to The Scary Secret. Please like and subscribe if you like stories like these. We appreciate all your support. Now, on with the show. It was a crisp September morning in 1988, the kind where the New Mexico sun hangs low and golden, casting long shadows over the dusty roads of Belen. Tara Leigh Calico, a bright-eyed 19-year-old with a smile that could light up the Rio Grande Valley, slipped out of her home on Brugg Street around 9:30 a.m. She was heading out for her daily ritual, a 36-mile bike ride along Highway 47. But this wasn't just any bike. Her own had a flat tire, so she borrowed her mother's neon pink Huffy mountain bike, the one with those flashy yellow control cables and sidewalls that screamed 80s vibrancy. Tara was the picture of youthful ambition. Born on February 28, 1969, she grew up in this quiet corner of Valencia County, a place where everyone knew your name and the biggest excitement was the annual county fair. She was an honors student at the University of New Mexico, juggling classes in business administration with dreams of a future beyond the desert horizons. Friends described her as kind, athletic, and fiercely independent, a girl who loved tennis, music, and the freedom of the open road. Her Walkman was her constant companion, blasting tunes from Boston or maybe some classic rock to keep her pedaling strong. Her mother, Patty Dole, watched her go that morning with a mix of pride and that nagging parental worry. You see, Patty had ridden with Tara before, sharing those mother-daughter moments under the vast blue sky. But lately, something had changed. On previous rides, Patty felt eyes on them, an unsettling presence from a motorist who seemed to linger too long, follow too closely. It was enough to make her stop joining Tara, urging her daughter instead to carry Mace for protection. Tara, ever the optimist, brushed it off. "Mom, I'll be fine," she'd say with that confident grin. "It's just a bike ride." But on this day, Tara made a promise that would haunt Patty forever. "If I'm not back by noon, come get me," she told her mom. She had plans. A tennis match with her boyfriend at 12:30. Noon was the cutoff, no exceptions. As Tara pedaled away, her ponytail bouncing with each turn of the wheels, no one could have predicted this ordinary Tuesday would shatter into one of the most baffling mysteries in American true crime history. The route was familiar, a straight shot south along Highway 47 toward Rio Communities, then looping back. It was about 17 miles out and 17 back, give or take, with the wind at her back on a good day. Witnesses later recalled seeing her that morning, a flash of pink bike, white tennis shoes, and a yellow striped shirt under the relentless sun. One driver noted her around 11:45 a.m., cruising steadily, headphones on, lost in her world of melodies. Noon came and went. The clock ticked past 12:30, and still no Tara. Patty's worry turned to panic. She grabbed her keys and drove the route herself, eyes scanning the roadside for any sign of her daughter. The highway stretched empty, mocking her growing fear. No bike overturned in a ditch, no Tara waving from the shoulder, just the endless ribbon of asphalt under the afternoon heat. By early afternoon, Patty was back home, heart pounding, dialing the Valencia County Sheriff's Office. "My daughter's missing," she reported, her voice steady but edged with dread. Deputies responded quickly, launching an initial search along the highway. What they found, or rather what they didn't, only deepened the enigma. Scattered along the road, about 3 miles from where Tara was last seen, were fragments of her Sony Walkman. The headphones were tangled, the device cracked as if thrown or dropped in haste. Nearby, a cassette tape lay in the dirt, its ribbon partially unwound. Patty's mind raced. Had Tara left these as breadcrumbs? A desperate trail to follow? She might have done that on purpose, Patty told investigators, clinging to hope, to show us where she was. But where was the bike? That bright pink Huffy vanished as completely as Tara herself. No skid marks on the pavement, no signs of a crash. It was as if she'd been plucked from the earth mid-pedal. As word spread through Balin, the community rallied. Neighbors, friends, and volunteers combed the scrubby desert landscape, calling Tara's name in the wind. Helicopters buzzed overhead, their rotors chopping the air in a futile hunt. The sheriff's department interviewed anyone who might have seen something: truckers, farmers, passers-by. Several witnesses came forward with chilling details. They remembered seeing Tara that morning, but more alarmingly, they recalled a vehicle tailing her. A light-colored pickup truck, possibly a 1950s Ford model with a white camper shell, had been spotted driving unusually close behind her bike. One observer described it creeping along, matching her pace, as if watching, waiting. Was this the same motorist who had stalked Patty before? The thought sent shivers through the investigation. Deputies canvassed the area, knocking on doors, checking garages for any sign of that truck. Tips poured in. A suspicious vehicle here, an odd noise there, but nothing concrete. The sun set on September 20th with no answers, only questions multiplying like stars in the night sky. In the days that followed, the search intensified. The FBI was looped in, their agents poring over maps and timelines. Tara's boyfriend was questioned, but he had an airtight alibi, waiting for her at the tennis courts. Her family, Patty, her stepfather, John Dole, siblings, clung to each other, distributing flyers with Tara's photo. Those striking green eyes, shoulder-length brown hair, a small scar on her calf from a childhood accident. Media picked up the story, beaming Tara's image across New Mexico and beyond. "Have you seen this girl?" the headlines pleaded. Rewards were offered, starting small but growing as desperation mounted. Yet as weeks turned into months, the trail grew cold. No ransom demands, no sightings, no body. Tara had simply disappeared. What happened on that stretch of Highway 47? Was it a random abduction, a hit and run covered up, or something more sinister involving that lurking truck? The pieces of the Walkman whispered clues, but the desert kept its secrets buried deep. As investigators dug deeper, rumors swirled through Balin like dust devils. Whispers of local troublemakers, shady figures seen around town, but without evidence, they were just ghosts in the wind. Patty Dole refused to give up, driving that route daily, eyes always searching, heart always hoping. Little did anyone know, this was just the beginning of a labyrinthine tale that would span decades, drawing in psychics, anonymous tips, and even international intrigue. But on that fateful day, as the search parties trudged home empty-handed, one thing was clear. Tara Calico's vanishing wasn't just a disappearance. It was the start of an enduring enigma that would challenge everything we think we know about safety, strangers, and the shadows that look on familiar roads. The months dragged on after September 20, 1988, each one heavier than the last for Patty Dole and her family in Balin. The initial frenzy of searches had quieted to a grim routine, flyers fading on telephone poles, occasional tips that led nowhere, the desert wind erasing any lingering hope. Tara's pink, huffy bike remained missing, as did any trace of the girl herself. Investigators chased shadows, the suspicious pickup truck, the broken Walkman pieces, but the trail had gone cold, leaving only questions and a quiet, aching void in the Dole household. Then came the summer of 1989. Nearly 10 months had passed since Tara pedaled away that morning. On June 15th, in the coastal town of Port St. Joe, Florida, some 1,500 miles from the dusty roads of Valencia County, a woman pulled into the parking lot of a small convenience store. She noticed a white, windowless Toyota cargo van parked nearby, driven by a man in his 30s with a mustache. Nothing unusual, just another traveler passing through. She went inside, bought what she needed, and when she returned to her car, the van was gone. In its place, lying face down on the asphalt where the vehicle had been, was a color Polaroid photograph. The finder picked it up. What she saw made her stomach drop. The image showed a young woman and a boy, both lying on what looked like bedding in the back of a vehicle. Black duct tape sealed their mouths. Their arms were pulled behind them, seemingly bound. The girl stared straight at the camera with wide, haunted eyes. The boy beside her looked equally terrified. A paperback book lay nearby, My Sweet Audrina by V.C. Andrews. The photo was crisp, recent, the colors vivid under the Florida sun. She took it straight to the police. Word spread quickly. The image hit national television, featured on shows like A Current Affair in July 1989. People across the country saw it, gasped, speculated, and in New Mexico, friends of the Dole family watched in stunned silence. That girl, she looked so much like Tara. Phone calls flooded in. "You have to see this," one relative urged John Dole, Tara's stepfather. He contacted authorities, and soon Patty was on her way to examine the photograph. She studied every detail, the shape of the face, the hair color, the build. Time had passed. Could Tara have changed? No makeup, different lighting, the stress of whatever horror she might have endured. But then Patty saw it, a distinctive mark on the woman's right leg, a scar, the exact same location, the same shape as the one Tara carried from a childhood car accident. And there, beside the girl, that book, My Sweet Audrina. Patty knew it well. Tara loved V.C. Andrews' novels, and this one had been a favorite. The pieces fit too perfectly to ignore. "It's her," Patty told investigators, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I know my daughter. That's Tara." The Polaroid ignited fresh hope and fresh torment. Could Tara still be alive? Bound, gagged, held captive somewhere? The boy in the photo remained a mystery, though some initially wondered if he might be Michael Henley, a young New Mexico boy who'd vanished months earlier in April 1988. His fate would later be resolved tragically, his remains found in the mountains ruled an accident. Experts weighed in. Scotland Yard analysts examined the image and concluded the woman was indeed Tara Calico. But then came the counterpoint. A team from Los Alamos National Laboratory reviewed it and said no, definitely not her. The FBI's analysis fell somewhere in between, inconclusive. The film type itself provided a clue. Polaroid officials confirmed it wasn't available until May 1989, meaning the photo had been taken at least 8 months after Tara's disappearance. The discovery thrust the case back into the spotlight. Media swarmed, replaying the haunting image. Tips surged anew. People reported sightings of white vans, suspicious men, anything that might connect the dots from New Mexico to Florida. Roadblocks went up in Port St. Joe, but the mustached driver vanished like smoke. For Patty, the photo became both lifeline and curse. She clung to it as proof Tara might still breathe, might still fight to come home. Every night she stared at copies, searching for more signs. The curve of an eyebrow, the way the hair fell. Yet doubt crept in alongside hope. If it was Tara, who had taken her? Why leave the photo behind like a taunt? Was it a cruel hoax, or a desperate signal from someone who couldn't speak? As 1989 faded into 1990, the Polaroid lingered like an open wound. Other strange images surfaced. A blurry shot of a taped mouth near a California construction site. Another on an Amtrak train. But they offered no closure, only more confusion. Patty drove the old bike route still, eyes scanning the horizon, whispering Tara's name into the wind. The photograph had cracked open the door to unimaginable possibilities. Abduction across state lines, a living nightmare in the back of a van, a captor bold enough to discard evidence in plain sight. Yet it answered nothing definitively. It only deepened the mystery, turning a local disappearance into a national riddle that refused to fade. The Polaroid had cracked the case wide open, or so it seemed, pulling Tara Calico's disappearance from the quiet deserts of New Mexico into the harsh glare of national television. Patty Dole carried that haunting image like a talisman, studying it under every light, convinced her daughter's eyes stared back from the bound figure on that grainy print. Yet the conflicting analysis left her suspended between hope and despair. Scotland Yard said yes. Los Alamos said no. The FBI hedged. The film date proved it couldn't have been taken before 1989, months after Tara vanished. But that only fueled more questions. Was Tara still out there, suffering in some hidden place? Or was this a cruel coincidence, a hoax designed to torment a grieving family? As the 1990s dawned, the trail grew colder still. Patty and John Dole appeared on shows like Unsolved Mysteries and America's Most Wanted, pleading for leads, mailing thousands of flyers across the country. The community in Balin held vigils, searched old routes, whispered theories in diners and backyards. The old Ford pickup with the camper shell remained the strongest lead. Witnesses swore it tailed Tara closely that morning, but the vehicle was never found. The driver never identified. Rumors swirled. A serial killer passing through, a hit and run covered up by panic, or something closer to home. Then, in the late 90s and early 2000s, investigators began turning inward. Former Sheriff Rene Rivera, who took over the case years after the disappearance, started piecing together a different picture. He spoke publicly in 2008, claiming he knew what happened. Tara had been struck, perhaps accidentally, by a vehicle driven by local teenagers who knew her. In a panic, they allegedly loaded her up, took her somewhere remote, and things escalated into tragedy. The boys, he said, had help hiding what they had done, maybe even from family or friends who feared the consequences. Rivera knew names, he insisted, but without a body or hard physical evidence, charges stayed out of reach. The theory hit like a thunderclap in a small town where everyone knew everyone. Whispers had circulated for years about groups of young men, troublemakers, some said, who cruised those highways, maybe drunk, maybe reckless. One informant, on his deathbed years later, recounted overhearing conversations in a basement hangout, talk of a truck hitting Tara, of her fighting back, of desperate measures to make it all disappear. Another man came forward, claiming a confession from someone in that circle. But the suspects? Many had passed on, some by their own hand, others naturally, taking any truth with them. A rumored note allegedly confessing involvement was never properly entered into evidence. Questions lingered about conflicts of interest, old loyalties, and why justice seemed stalled. Patty refused to believe the locals had done this. She clung to the Polaroid, to the possibility Tara had been taken far away, perhaps trafficked or held captive. She moved to Florida in 2003, still searching, still hoping, but the desert held its secrets tight. No body turned up in the scrub, no bike in the ravine, no confession that stuck. Excavations based on tips, like one in 1993 about strange digging sounds the day after, yielded nothing but dirt and disappointment. Other shadows crossed the case. Serial killer David Parker Ray, the infamous toy box killer from Elephant Butte, was floated as a possibility. His methods matched the horror of the photo, but timelines and locations didn't align perfectly. More Polaroids surfaced, one near a California construction site, another on an Amtrak train, each with bound figures, each chilling in its own way. Patty examined them all, seeing glimpses of her daughter in some, dismissing others as hoaxes. The FBI chased them, but they led to dead ends, unidentified victims, or staged pranks. By the time Patty Dole passed away in 2006, she had spent nearly 2 decades living with uncertainty. Her family carried on the fight, her sisters and brothers never stopping the quiet advocacy. The case went dormant again, then flared with renewed task forces in 2013, FBI rewards in 2019, sealed warrants in the early 2020s. Investigators spoke of sufficient evidence presented to prosecutors of persons of interest whose names remained under court seal, yet no arrests followed, no charges filed, at least not publicly. Through it all, the questions persisted like echoes across Highway 47. Was it a random act by a stranger in that white van? A tragic accident that spiraled into murder, covered up by frightened kids and their connections? Or did the Polaroid hold the key to a far darker fate, one that crossed state lines and defied every analysis? The small town of Balin still feels the weight of it. Drivers pass the old route, glancing at the shoulder where bike tracks once marked a struggle. Families lock doors a little tighter. Parents watch their daughters ride away with extra worry. Tara's story became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even on a bright, familiar morning, the ordinary can shatter in an instant.